Imagine a text, a piece of writing so powerful it literally shaped how an entire empire thought. But there's a catch. It was so complex that it became almost impossible to read. Well, today, we're going to unlock the secrets of that very text. It's called the Ambigua. It's this incredible masterpiece of Byzantine thought, a mystery for centuries, really. And we're going to explore how one man's search for just a little clarity ended up creating a guide to a whole new way of seeing the world. And now, for the first time, this incredible world of philosophy, theology, and, spirituality, it's finally open to us, all thanks to a new English translation. But here's the thing. This new accessibility, it was born from a very, very old problem. The text was an absolute masterpiece, for sure, but almost nobody could actually understand what it was saying. So that brings us to the big question, right? What exactly are these difficulties we're talking about? I mean, why would a text that's so foundational need another whole book just to figure it out? Sounds kind of crazy. Well, to get to the bottom of it, we've got to go back to the source of the problem. And that source, well, it was a man named Gregory the theologian. See, his writings were absolutely revered. I mean, they were held up as the gold standard of faith. But at the same time, they were a total riddle. Think of it like a beautiful, intricate lock that was just slowly seizing up, trapping all that incredible wisdom inside. And this right here, this is the core of the whole problem. On one hand, you've got Gregory, who's this absolute giant of theology. I mean, get this. After the Bible, he was the most quoted author in the entire Byzantine world. But on the other hand, his writing was becoming, well, dangerously hard to understand. People were really struggling with his language. It was profound, yeah, but it was also just so obscure. So who was this guy, really? Well, Gregory was a theologian back in the 4th century. He was a brilliant, brilliant speaker whose authority was, well, absolute. His words weren't just influential, They were literally considered a standard of faith. So getting him right, it wasn't just important, it was absolutely essential. Okay, so the real heart of the problem was his style. It was captivating, for sure, but it was also just so dense and elusive. You couldn't just casually read Gregory's work on a Sunday afternoon. No way. You needed, and this is a quote from back then, drawn-out explanations just to even begin to unpack what he meant. And let's be clear, this wasn't some minor academic squabble. This was a full-blown, growing crisis of understanding. So somebody needed to build a bridge across this growing gap in understanding. And the person who stepped up to build that bridge, well, that was Maximus the Confessor. He's really the hero of our story. Now, Maximus was no ordinary scholar, not by a long shot. He started out right at the center of power, serving as a top secretary to the emperor himself. But then he gave it all up, walked away from it all to live a life of contemplation as a monk. And it's this incredible journey, from worldly power to spiritual wisdom that made him the perfect person to tackle Gregory's riddle. And intellectually, the man was an absolute powerhouse. He's been described as one of the most original and challenging Christian thinkers of all time. So he had it all, really, the spiritual depth and the sheer mental horsepower needed to unravel Gregory's super enigmatic words. And all of this brings us to the creation of his masterpiece. It's a work that would eventually be known as the Book of Difficulties. It's funny. It all started not with some grand, ambitious academic project, but with a really simple human request. See, a fellow monk named John was just completely stumped by Gregory's writings. So he wrote a letter to Maximus, who was his spiritual guide, and basically said, hey, I need some help here. And Maximus's answer? That was the Ambigua. It was a work of such staggering creativity, it went way beyond a simple Q&A. The title itself, Ambigua, is pretty revealing. It's Latin for difficult passages or ambiguous things. So, the name tells you everything you need to know about its purpose, right? It was all about shining a light on these texts that had really fallen into shadow. But here's the thing. Maximus was doing so much more than just, explaining a few confusing sentences. He was aiming for something way, way deeper. He was trying to unlock divine meaning. So you might be thinking, was this just about fixing some confusing grammar or clarifying some old-fashioned language? And the answer is a big, definitive no. The challenge here, and the whole purpose of the project, was so much more profound than that. See, Maximus saw something much deeper going on here. He believed that Gregory's words weren't just clever. He saw them as sacred, as inspired, almost like scripture itself. So from his point of view, the difficulty wasn't a flaw, it was a feature. It was intentionally designed to kind of goad the reader's mind, to push it toward a higher spiritual level. And on top of all that, for Maximus, explaining these texts also became the perfect way to address the big theological controversies happening in his own time. So when you really get down to it, his task wasn't just translation, it was revelation. He was literally pulling back a curtain to show everyone a hidden divine order that he was convinced was woven into the very fabric of Gregory's language. So in the end, what started as a commentary, just a book explaining some difficult passages, it transformed into something so much grander. It became a map to God. Yeah, in the process of just trying to explain Gregory, Maximus ended up creating his own masterpiece, his magnum opus. The Ambigua just blossomed into this vast exploration of existence itself. I'm talking everything from the nature of the cosmos and our place in it, all the way to the deepest questions of metaphysics, the whole shebang. And this wasn't some dry, dusty textbook. Not at all. A much better way to think about it is like a guidebook. Imagine a collection of notes from a really seasoned traveler, someone who has already walked the path to God and is leaving behind little markers for the rest of us who want to follow. Or here's an even more powerful image for you. The Ambigua is, and I quote, a labyrinthine map of the mind's journey to God. Wow. I mean, yeah, it's complex, it's intricate, for sure, but it promises a clear path through the maze of our existence, all the way to ultimate truth. You know, the story of the Ambigua is just an amazing example of how one dedicated mind can unlock centuries of wisdom for all of us. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it, how much more ancient wisdom is still out there, just locked away in some obscure text, waiting for the right person with the right key to finally come along and open it up.